So I tend to put reason up at the top. I still maintain that reason ultimately, even though you can't get ought from is, without is and a reason applies to is, you can't get ought. And so I think
okay.
it's
I want to quibble with that. Okay, I want to quibble with that.
Sure. Okay.
To some degree, this is going to hinge on how we define reason, right? Because it's kind of an expandable word. But I think it's useful to draw a distinction between reason and attention. And attention should be higher because attention feeds reason, right? So when you're in these podcasts and you're attending, new information is flooding in. Now that's reasonable, but I wouldn't say that's reason. Reason is more yep.
No, I agree with you there. In fact, actually, I think you said something I desperately disagreed with. The idea, you say somewhere that the person who is truthful is then going to naturally do the right thing or something like that. And I think
eventually.
Well, yeah, but that really grated on me.
Okay.
Because it missed the attention part. Namely, you don't get knowledge by revelation. You only get knowledge by attention. And what I would call attention being empirical, being experiment and testing the world around you.
No, you get knowledge from revelation all the time. All the time.
No.
Sure, I'll give you an example.
You get wisdom, maybe.
No,
wisdom.
I'll give you an example, man.
Okay.
This happens to you all the time, but maybe it's an issue of definition, right? Okay, so you're trying to solve a scientific problem. So you ask yourself the question. Well, what happens is that answers pop up. Now, you have to use reason to differentiate the quality of the answers. But the fact that those answers manifest themselves in the field of your consciousness, that's revelation.
Oh, no, it isn't. It's based on my previous empirical observations of the world. I say,
not just.
It's
way more than that. It's way more than that.
What would happen? No.
Sure, it's based on the entire history of your biology.
If you locked theoretical physicists in a room for 40 years and asked them to come up with a theory, the theories they come up with would have no relation to the world around us because they constantly have to be prodded and changed by observation and experience.
Of course.
And the brilliant insight I've had, there are times in my life I've had brilliant insights and I wrote them down as papers. Nature didn't happen to agree with them.
Of course.
In the sense that, and so that's what I mean.
I didn't say I didn't say that kind of revelation was infallible by any stretch of the imagination. It's not, and that's partly why you have to discuss it with other people.
I guess I think of it defines it once again, and it's all epistemology, I suppose.
Yeah,
and that's why I'm a physicist and not a philosopher or a psychologist, I guess.
But when you say that
what do you mean by knowledge? To me, knowledge is an understanding of the way the world works.
What do you mean by works?
The way it functions. So you make predictions, and if you understand the way the world works, if I say, if this happens now, that will happen then. Yes. To me, that's just a very pedestrian thing. It's why I'm a physicist. But that's, I guess, how I would define knowledge. How would you define it?
Well, I think that knowledge is basically experienced in relationship to action and predictions about the outcomes of actions.
So we agree.
Yes.
And then that kind of knowledge can only come from experience then.
No,
because you can't say how the world's going to work if you haven't watched at how the world has worked up to now.
But you know that that's not true because because the apparatus that you're using to acquire that knowledge of the world is like 3.5 billion years old. And all of that had to come for you to draw those conclusions from the experience that presents itself. So revelation is definitely a consequence of your experience with the world, but think about the platform that's doing that.
It's revelation. I think it's just reason applied to observation, right? That you can call that revelation if you want. It's my reasonable, rational mind.
Yeah, but where do you think
I see?
Fair enough. Well, where does thought come from?
Where does thought come from?
You're
supposed to tell me you're the psychologist.
I am telling you.
No, but I'm saying
it bubbles up from the depths, right?
There's no doubt. Look, and I'm not being naive. Again, we've talked about this before, and you made this other wonderful statement about reason being the slave of the passions, and I'll buy that. So I'll understand that there are all sorts of human reasons why I do what I do, and I pretend afterwards it's rational thinking. But the knowledge ultimately comes when all of that is filtered by the results of experiments that So that, yeah, there may be all sorts of reasons I do things I don't understand why I'm doing them. But the knowledge that comes out of it doesn't come from any of those reasons or any of that internal machinations. It comes from a process that eventually I can compare to reality and test it, and then it's knowledge. But it doesn't come from just sitting there and saying the world works this way, because who the hell knows how the world works unless you observe the world constantly.
Yes. Look, most of that I'm in complete agreement with. But we think about the scientific process. I mean, one of the things that we don't teach young researchers is how to generate hypotheses.
Yes.
It's like hypotheses, hypothesis testing. Okay, so now you want to generate hypotheses. Well, here's something you can do that will help. Read a lot, widely, a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
Read
and then ask yourself some questions, and hypotheses will come bubbling up.